You've got Dingle Fáilte Cúilín Media. Welcome back, everyone, to episode 27 on Cúilín Media. And we have another full house, boys. We love to see it. Seamus Brady here, joined by Liam White, Matthew Hurley, and Aaron Prendergast to run through another action-packed weekend. Now, the games were less in terms of quantity, but in terms of quality and of impact, they were right up there, lads, weren't they? I mean, talk to me, Matthew. I'll go to you first. Obviously, you were at the game today. Just how was the atmosphere, and then what did you make of the weekend's action?
Yeah, it was, I suppose, a game that you would have been disappointed as coming out, firstly, as a Barras fan, and secondly, obviously, as a Cork football fan as well. It just was gut-wrenching, to be honest. That ended the game. Obviously, we will get into it, the nitty-gritty and stuff like that. Look, personally, I think it wasn't a great end to the game. It was unfair in many ways to the Barras to lose it in that fashion. Look, well done to Dingle. It was a fantastic win for them. Dylan Gainey was exceptional in the second half in particular. But yeah, it's just a tough one to take. It really is. The games yesterday, obviously, Martin, what a story there. And it was the weekend of last-minute winners. Ben Stafford, probably a brilliant winner last night. Today it was Conor Gainey with the late two-pointer. Probably Conor Gainey one has more controversy surrounded around it, but yeah, there was those two games, and obviously the Boden win as well, which was very, very comfortable over a tie as well. And obviously there were stories in intermediate and junior as well throughout the weekend, so looking forward to getting into it.
Yeah, we certainly have a lot to go through, don't we, Liam?
Yeah, no, and it was a great weekend. I suppose from a Leinster perspective, I think it's a good thing we got a good Leinster Hurling Final, because the Leinster Football Final, especially in the second half, you can see the difference in class between Ballyboden and the tie, which I suppose some of us were probably worried about to a degree, especially with it being in Croke Park. But take nothing away from Ballyboden, it was a professional performance, and they got the job done. As for St. Martin's, yeah, listen, it's a fantastic story for them to win the Leinster Championship. Shows how competitive the Leinster Club Championship has been the last couple of years. You had O'Loughlin Gales winning it in 23, Lafina winning it last year, Martin's winning it yesterday, Ballyhill winning it in 22. So it's been a right competitive championship over the last couple of years. And yeah, congratulations to Martins and all the rest of the teams in it. And yeah, looking forward to getting into it.
Absolutely. So yeah, Liam's right, Aaron. I mean, we're going to get to the games game by game, but I mean, in terms of the Leinster Football Final, it wasn't competitive at all. So thank God that the Leinster Hurling Final was.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank God, like we got some game, something to speak about and something to discuss in more detail, because yeah, the Leinster Football Final was very disappointing. Look, I think most people expected Ballyboden to win the game, but like, given how good a tie had looked throughout Leinster, and given how dominant they looked in some of their games, and obviously the big win versus Naas, you were hoping for a closer game, but it wasn't the case at all. Like, there was a 20-minute period where Ballyboden outscored a tie like 1-9 to a point, and it was just complete, absolute domination from start to finish, really, and very disappointing. But look, thankfully, we did get a great Leinster Hurling Final between St. Martin's and Ballyhale, and thankfully for the spectators in Croke Park, they were still, you know, at least served up something enjoyable, because yeah, like watching the first game, you know, it was kind of hard to even tell if there was actually anyone there watching the match, because you know, it was just such a damp squid, and quite disappointing for Leinster club football. But yeah, thankfully the hurling game lived up to a bit of expectation.
No, the hurling one certainly did. But we are going to start off, as Peter has indicated here. And guys, we have plenty of comments flooding in. We love to see it. Shane B, Pádraig Glennon, Peter Griffin, Jack Nulty, all getting involved, leading the way in the discussion. If you are new to the channel, get involved in the live chat. We would love to hear your opinions from the weekend. Peter saying, hey lads, wow, another drama-filled weekend of action. Biggest talking point has to be the late thriller in Thurles. Lots of mixed opinions. Dick Turpin strikes again was one. Woolley, as in Colin Parkinson, was arguing the ball was handed over as per the rules, so why the 50-metre advancement? Conor Gainey and Ben Stafford, the headlines of the weekend, they enter the Harry Ruddle-esque Hall of Fame and Wall of Legends. I mean, lads, that is probably the headline of the weekend. I've seen plenty written about it. Let's jump straight to the Munster Senior Football Championship Final. Dingle, 1 goal and 18 points. St. Finbarr's 20 points. Matthew, take this one away. You were there in Semple Stadium. What was your recapping on this game?
It was a sensational win for Dingle. Really, really good kick by Conor Gainey at the very end. Dylan Gainey was absolutely exceptional in the second half. As I mentioned previously, but when the Bars were ahead by that much coming down the home stretch, you would have thought the Bars had this wrapped up. And Jimmy Barry Murphy did say to Tommy Rooney from off the ball, to be fair to him, he did say that the Bars did have a few opportunities to win at the end. They didn't take them, unfortunately. But look, it will be a difficult one to take for the Bars. I think Peter mentioned in the comments as well, there the Stephen Sherlock at 16 points today, 12 in the first half, which I think is some sort of record, to be honest, and still ended up at the losing side, which is absolutely sensational in its own right there. Look, it's all the indicators you need there. Stephen Sherlock needs to start for Cork next year. You can't bench him. You cannot leave him off the panel. He said he wants to join the team with John Cleary next year. He has to be starting for Cork next year, full stop. I don't care what anyone says, he has to start. You looked at him today, absolutely sensational, especially the first half, absolutely outstanding. But the main talking point is the free that was given at the end. Ian Maguire, in some instances, that's given as a foul. The referee gives it as an overcarried ball. And Dylan Quinn, the Bars substitute, picked the ball up. He tried to give the ball back to the Dingle player. The Dingle player actually shoved him over, but the ref then advanced this 50 metres, which is very, very unfair. The thing is, I heard from Tommy Rooney and other people on social media that apparently Dylan shouldn't have picked up the ball in the first place. Like at the same time, though, should the Dingle player have shoved Dylan Quinn over either? That's what I'm kind of asking over this as well. It's kind of like two wrongs don't make a right sort of situation. Okay, if Dylan did pick up the ball and it was unfair or it is against the rules, then okay, that's the 50-metre advancement. But once the Dingle player starts shoving the Bars player, you're thinking, okay, that's cancelled now. You have to take the free from there. A lot of people are saying hot ball. I wouldn't have gone hot ball, in my opinion. It's still a Dingle free. But yeah, it's a very, very hard one to take. And just the rule in general as well, I just think it is, and I think it's come to a head this weekend. It is such a harsh rule to bring the ball up 50 metres and then for a 2-pointed kick to win it at the very end of it. It's so harsh on St. Finbar. Look, I think if it was a one-point kick to make it extra time, I don't think any Bars fans or any Cork football fans would have been angry in terms of going to extra time. That's fair enough. The Bars had a lot of opportunities to win the game. That's fair enough. But to have Conor Gainey have a 2-pointed opportunity at the very end of the game when there's no time left for Darren Newman to take the next kick out, I think it is so unfair on St. Finbar's players. It will hurt them for a long, long time because obviously it's very difficult coming out of the Cork Championship and things like that as well. I have to give credit to the Bars players and I have to give credit to Jimmy Barry Murphy, obviously, in the post-match interview because we seen a few years ago with Montbelly, Mylock and Galway, the amount of vitriol they gave to the referee after a game against, I think it was Padraig Pearson from Roscommon. That was a horrendous end to the game. But to be fair to the Bars players, they were absolutely devastated. But at the same time, they were saying that's sport, you know. Look, Dingle, I wouldn't begrudge them. It's a fantastic win for them. It's their first ever Munster Championship. It's a hard one to take for the Bars, but you have to say as well, lads, there is quality in Cork football, and I don't care what anybody says. You look at the quality out there today. I thought Darren Newman showed everybody in the country that why John Cleary has called him into the panel for next year in the National Football League. He's a very good goalkeeper. He's very comfortable under the high ball. He's very good at kickouts as well, and he showed his expertise today. Brian Hayes, very good. Ian Maguire, very good around the middle. And to be honest, you wouldn't have even noticed Mark O'Connor was there from a Dingle point of view. Like, I think Ian Maguire and Brian Hayes absolutely played sensational today. And you have to talk about the creme de la creme. Sherlock, what a performance from him. You talk about David Clifford being a difference maker for Kerry in terms of the new rules. I think Sherlock will be a difference maker for Cork in Division 2 next year. He is a sensational footballer. If he gets in there from outside the arc, he is going to be dangerous for any opposition in Division 2. And that's what makes us so dangerous, I would think, in Division 2. That's if we play our cards right. So, look, it's a positive for Cork football that we have so many options and things like that we have had in the off-season. It wasn't the case this time last year, I'll put it that way. It's disappointing for the Bars. It is a very, very tough defeat to take. But I'll put it this way, I do think Dingle, even without Mark O'Connor, I think they'll go on a good run in the All-Ireland. I think they're, in my eyes, I think they're favourites in the All-Ireland semi against Ballyboden. Many people might disagree with me on that. But when you have Dylan Gainey, when you have Paul Gainey, when you have Mikey Gainey coming off the bench, you have Conor Gainey there, you have Thomas Sullivan, you have some very, very good players. So I think Dingle will go into the All-Ireland semi-final with a lot of confidence. Maybe won it on controversial circumstances today, but again, it's their first Munster title. I wouldn't begrudge them. It's a very good year for them, and fair play to them for winning today.
You've summed it up really, really well there. There will be plenty of comments coming in about it. Peter saying treble of Munster titles back in the kingdom with Gaeltacht, and Ballymacalligat joining Dangan y Hughes. Pádraig Lennon says, feel for Sherlock, what a performance, and surely that's the best provincial final in years of any province. Jack Nulty says, Dylan Gainey was immense second half, harsh decision, 50 metre, we'll have to look at that rule. That said, it was still some kick to win. Peter says, really feel for Sherlock, 16 points and not being on the winning team. I mean, he must be sitting at home especially thinking, how on God's name am I not a Munster champion right now? You summed it up really well there with that decision. My initial reaction to that decision was very, very harsh. To win a Munster title, that is so harsh. Maybe technically the decision is correct, but it's like one of those, if a ref calls someone on 5 steps, it's like, okay, maybe by the letter of the law, it might be correct. But my God, that's harsh to win a Munster title. And I don't think any of the Dingle players even were looking to the ref being like 50 metres, 50 metres. I think they just wanted to get the ball back and run the attack. 50 metres to bring it up that much for a 2-pointed kick. It really, really has split opinion. Aaron, what's your take on it?
Yeah, I think the problem really is the rule. To be honest with you, I think since introducing the new rules, we've been very quick to use the 2-pointer when we can. If there's an infringement, if there's too many players left back, then we'll bring the ball forward and allow a 2-pointer. We'll do the same for the send. We'll do the same for someone stopping a potential attack and everything else. Look, I get the free. I think, I think for me, it definitely was a free. I think the Bars player shouldn't have picked the ball up as well. I think too often in Gaelic football, we do see teams trying to slow other teams down and trying to stop attacks and everything else. And look, I think to be fair, the Dingle player does push into him as well. I think that is worth mentioning. But I think, as soon as the Bars player picks the ball up, it's, I think the referee's always going to have a decision to make. But to bring the ball forward, 50 meters for a 2-pointer, that does seem very harsh. I think that's where most people would have the issue. I think if it's just for a 1-pointer, fair enough. But does the error outweigh the consequence of conceding 2 points? Because, do you know what I mean? I don't really think it does, to be fair. So I think that's quite harsh from a Bar's perspective. And look, fair play to Gainey for putting the ball over the bar as well. I was kind of nearly looking at it and thinking, oh, this is a bit, can he work it short maybe and then just take the 1 point? Because he's taking a big risk, if he does kind of get it wrong. But obviously, look, it's the brilliance of the 2-pointer. It's all risk and all reward as well. Do you know what I mean? It could be the hero or the villain there, ends up being the hero. So, I think the main issue is the rule. I think, look, if there is dissent or anything like that in these kind of areas, bring the ball forward for a point. Don't think anyone's disagreeing with that. But I think 2 points does seem very, very harsh. And I remember even with inter-county football as well, when there was an infringement and there wasn't 3 back. I don't know. I thought that was a bit harsh as well, to be bringing forward 2-pointers and stuff like that as well. So I think it definitely is something they do need to look at, I think, going into next year.
Yeah, I feel like a decision like this is usually what brings it to a head. And unfortunately, there's always a team that suffers as a result of then that rule needing to be changed. And on this occasion, it is the Bars. Shane saying the free being brought up was harsh on the Bars, but nobody will convince me that Dingle shouldn't have had a penalty for the leg block. I'm guessing you're talking about Gainey's shot for goal. And that we'll come back to that. Because I don't think he actually blocked it with his leg. I think he blocked it with something that no man on this earth would want to block a Paul Gainey shot with. If you look at the absolute state he was in after, that looked very, very, very painful. So we'll come back to that in a minute. Liam, going to you next to get your opinion on this. The game itself, the decision at the end. Interestingly as well, there was, I think, 10 minutes before, and Matthew, you could probably weigh in on this after Liam is finished. It was really, really interesting because there was one patch where Tom O'Sullivan belted over a 2-pointer the ref brought it back for the free, and they took the free quickly, and I don't know who it was that belted it over for another 2 points, scored again, and the ref said, no, you've taken that too quick, and brought it back for the third time, and they had to go again, and they didn't get a 2-pointer in the end out of that. So there were some kind of crazy decisions, and I feel like surely that plays on a ref's psyche. If he feels like he's given a lot of decisions against the team, surely we're all human. Surely maybe there's a tiny bit of thinking, well, God, I better give them one back here.
A referee is probably going to think like that in a lot of games, which doesn't help to a degree, you know, or there could be a word said to him at halftime or something like that by an opposition player or an opposition manager. But in terms of the game itself, I mean, we've been saying it all year, and even speaking to other people I'm good friends with from Cork as well who are into GEA, they've been saying how Stephen Sherlock was not in the Cork panel this year, or how he's not been in there, like, you know, because I'd seen some of the score lines, some of the tallies they've been putting up even in their league campaign earlier this year. He's putting up 15 points a game, 16 points a game, 17 points a game. So I'm actually not surprised that he put up the tally that he did today, to be honest with you. He's just a really, really talented footballer, and it's like towards the end of the game, I was thinking, without respect, even if the Bards don't win this, you cannot give it to anyone else but him. I don't care. Like, you don't score that much in a football game and not get player of the match, to be honest with you. So, no, in fairness to Sherlock, absolutely sensational. I thought Brian Hayes had an excellent game as well, to be fair to him. And I think it's unfortunate for Cork football that he's one of the finest corner forwards in the country in hurling, because I think himself and Maguire, I think, are a really solid midfield partnership, to be fair. But Hayes is just that. I think he's that bit better as a hurler that he's obviously going to stick it out with them. And you know, I mean, he was up for player hurler of the year this year, which says everything about him. He's an excellent dual player. The kick at the end was unbelievable, but I will say I'm not a fan of the rule bringing it forward 50 meters. I haven't been a rule of it since the start of the year, to be honest. Just since the first game I saw this year with the two rules, I don't know what it is. I just feel bringing the ball forward that much is, I don't know. Like, bringing it forward at 5-10 yards, sure, but you know, giving the referee lip, or I don't even like handing the ball back, to be honest with you. I think it's a bit, you're trying to be a bit too nice on the pitch. You know, like, I remember, I still go back to the game I saw earlier today between Dublin and Derry in Croke Park, and handed the ball back to, I believe it was to Shane McGuigan, the Dublin cornerbacks handed the ball back to Shane McGuigan nearly up at the Derry goal. And I was just like, how can that be allowed? How can forward and he gets the advantage like that? But regardless, look, it was a brilliant kick at the end. You know, certainly not one I would have fancied kicking over the bar, to be honest with you. So fair play to Gainey for that. It was an unbelievable kick. But yeah, the Bars will feel very, very hurt by this. But it shows that Cork football is in a good place, in my opinion. You know, I thought they actually didn't have too bad of a championship campaign last year, to be fair. I thought they had they could have easily beaten Kerry in the Munster Championship. I thought they played well for a good majority of the game in the second game against Kerry. They bet Roscommon very well, put it up to Dublin and Croke Park. I think there's a positive future for Cork football. And for Matthew, I wanted to ask, would you start Newman goal next year, or would you stick with Micheál Martin, or who would you go with?
Very interesting question, Liam. The McGrath Cup's coming up soon. I'd probably try out Newman for a few of those games we play against Limerick and Tipperary, so maybe try out a few there. Not only Micheál Martin, but also Patrick Dodd from Nottingham is a decent enough goalkeeper as well. So we have three options there. We have some great options across the field, to be fair. I'd probably start Newman in the McGrath Cup, see how he is, see how he gets on. And if he's fitting into John Cleary's system, I'd start him in the league, yeah. I think his kickouts, his shot-stopping ability, his distribution, I think his calmness under pressure as well. And the way he's proved it for the Bars, I think he has to start for Cork next year. I think Sherlock has to start. I think Maguire. Then again, we have so many options around midfield, even without Brian Hayes. Like Conor O'Callaghan's there, you have Sean Walsh, you have Conor Callahan. So we need to utilise them as best as we can. David Buckley is putting his hat in the ring in terms of a forward for Cork. He's going to be in the panel next year. You also have Chris Oak, you have Mark Cronin, you have Conor Corbett's fully fit next year, you have Conor Manny. Owen McSweeney, like you do have some very, very good players among that car team. Yes, if you have left the panel, like Neil Arden gone off travelling and things like that, but look, it is going to be a strong panel next year, and I do believe we can achieve promotion. A lot of people might think Derry, Tyrone, possibly Louth after winning the Leinster Championship, at Kildare or Meath, but I think we're well up there. I think we can challenge for promotion with the players that we do have. I think it's just about John Cleary kind of getting the right piece of the jigsaw and fitting them all together. And this Bars run has proven the way that the Bars play football, especially in the Aero Guinness game and especially in this game today, they were kicking the ball. I don't know how many times. Like they weren't just hand passing it across and keeping the ball for a long time. They were kicking it forwards. They were kicking it sideways. Like they were actually playing football. What Kerry are so good at. So I think we need to implement that style into Cork football as well. We do have the footballers. And to answer your question on Newman, I think he's definitely worth to go in the Cork team. I know he might be new to the panel, but I think he's definitely worth to go in the league to start in the first 2 games.
Yeah.
Very interesting. We have a good comment in here, lads, from Shane. He says, I know how the Bars will feel, and today was harsher and in a Munster final, but my own club lost to Ballymacalligan in the Kerry Junior final due to a breach of the 3-up, which sent the game to penalties. Now, that would sting. That one would absolutely sting. Which loss, lads, one by one, just off the top of the head, which loss as a fan has hurt you the most for some bullshit reason? Aaron? Is there any that jump to mind?
Probably Dublin Cork in hurling 2013 semi-final, the sending off.
Yeah, Ryan
Probably the one that look, we might not have won the game anyway, but that's the one that instantly kind of comes to mind. With football, yeah, there isn't really anything that immediately jumps out in terms of like a Dublin football loss.
For me, it's like Donegal 2014. That's the one that hurts. What decision? Maybe it's gone out of my brain.
Not really necessarily a decision, but the goal chances.
Oh, you just mean just in terms of the game? I thought you meant in terms of like a refereeing decision kind of impacting.
Well, I mean, we could do that. We can do that. I can't really think of anyone involved in Dublin now necessarily.
Yeah.
We usually get the rub of the green with the referees.
Yeah, we do. Don't we? Yeah, so that's probably why.
A load of people are just going crazy now. Dubs. But I'm trying to think in hurling. Surely in hurling we've had even there this year, like with the Leach-in penalty, and was it the penalty against Wexford, the ghost goal.
He scored.
Yeah, that counted, didn't it? So,
yeah.
I don't know. We'll go back to that one. Lads, is there anything that stands out for you?
For me, ironically, it's another Cork and Kerry tussle, the 2015 Munster Final, the one where James O'Donoghue dived in Killarney.
Oh, yeah.
Because it set off a domino effect, because if Cork would have won that game, we actually would have played Fermanagh in the All-Ireland quarter-final, and Dublin would have played Kerry. So, and we would have got into the All-Ireland semi-final, and then Cork football wouldn't have been in a downward spiral after that. So it was down to that one moment. And I still haven't forgiven James O'Donoghue.
Loud Mead 2010. Aaron, Shane here is actually giving us a very good one. Sean, he's free in 2022, probably was a bit soft.
Yeah, maybe actually, to be fair. I mean, in fairness, like what was he, 50 meters out? Like it's, I don't know. Like it's one of them where it was. I feel like that was more just unlucky, to be honest. But I do remember that game, and I don't think anyone. I do think Kerry were the better side that day, to be fair.
Yeah, Kerry were the better side that day.
And also we had we did probably get away with the black card a little bit as well, with Evan coming for rolling around on the ground for like half the time.
That's true. I think on top of that, my one. And this isn't necessarily a refereeing decision, but just you lost because of something that really stung and annoyed you. I remember being a kid and being like really annoyed about Ross McConnell getting sent off against Cork in 2010. I remember him giving away the penalty that Donegal O'Connor scored. And then I remember straight after, like 5 minutes later, he got a second yellow for some stupid shit. And I remember being like, the first time that a loss had really stung. Like most of the games that I'd gone to, with my family or stuff like that before then. If Dublin lost badly. Like Dublin Kerry 2009, Dublin Tyrone 2008, and then I can't remember going to games before then because I was 6 years old. But like if we lost in Croker, we usually lost badly. The Cork 2010 game was the first All-Ireland semi-final massive game where we nearly won. And like the first one that we could have won and lost. But yeah, Ross was a class player, but I remember just being like, why did he get the second yellow? Liam, is there any that jumps to your head?
Oh, I could be here all day. I mean,
sure, don't the Offaly fans just sit on the pitch if you don't get the right decision?
And it worked, so we're not complaining. 2022, the All-Ireland minor final, the free at the end, which was just absolute horseshit. Sorry to say, but it was ridiculous, and we still haven't forgotten that one. I know we got revenge in 24 with the under-20 final, but that was ridiculous. The All-Ireland Club Hurling Final in 2013, John Sexton from Cork, ironically. Sorry, Matthew. If he stepped foot in KK again, he might never get out. Sent off 2 of our players, and we lost by 2 points in the All-Ireland Club Final, and it still very much stings to this day. But I suppose one that hurts, but not from like a refereeing decision or anything like that. You truly haven't hit rock bottom until you've lost a Christy Ring Cup semi-final against Down on penalties during COVID. That's when life really hits you, you know. But yeah, look, it's yeah, there's been a few of them, but
I hope not. Look, it is. Lovely get away with push on the backs to stop 5 in a row. So Liam, you're all right.
There was no push there. What are you on about? There was no push. That was going up the ball cleanly.
John Doherty here saying, nice to see a win for Wexford. For Wexford Club Hurling yesterday, it would be great for the game of hurling if Wexford were to make the big breakthrough and win the Liam McCarthy Cup. I would absolutely love to see Wexford make another breakthrough like they did in 2019, lit up that championship. I remember because I live quite close to Croke Park, and I remember that day where they were playing against Tipperary because I was going to that game. I used to spend my summers down in Wexford, so I always had a soft spot for Wexford, down around Curracloe. And one thing that I noticed was like the Wexford fans came so early to that game. Like they were literally, it was like 2 hours away from throw-in, and it was already floods of them on the street. Like they were absolutely travelled in force for that game against Tip, and like they should have won it. That's the thing that hurts. Like the game was there for them, especially after Lee Chin's goal. Hopefully they can make a comeback under Keith Rossiter and have another run in it. But yeah, lads, Dingle are in fact the Munster champions for 2025. An incredible game, and it could have gone either way. And I agree with you, Matthew. Fair play to Stephen Sherlock, the way that he handled that interview at the end, because by God, that must have been a difficult interview to do. And the way that the Finbars lads conducted themselves after the game was very admirable, because it would have been understandable if they were frustrated as hell at the end of that game, because it was harsh. Maybe it was correct, but it was harsh. And not all referees would give that decision the way that they did with that much on the line. But the final thing I want to touch on here, and it's just, if you want a perfect example, lads, of how much winning the club championship matters to the players. So if you want to see a perfect example of how much it means to players to win the club championship, look no further than poor Kieran Doolan. He stopped a Paul Gainey rocket for the Finbars back of the net. Yeah, took one for the team. We'll put it that way. God bless him. That certainly looked like a hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like I think anyone who's ever experienced that before will know that. Yeah, that definitely takes the wind out of your sails. And to be fair, at that like pace as well. Do you know what I mean? Not too sure if I've ever had it that bad now. But yeah, I think it would be very harsh if they gave that as an intentional foot block. Do you know what I mean?
That wasn't a foot block. You did not block that with his foot.
Yeah. Well, no, like I think if you're given that, I think it would have been. And Jesus, he might have just got up and left because what's the point? I just did that. And like,
He wasn't getting up.
When I first saw it, I thought it was a foot block, and then you see it afterwards, and you're kind of shivering after. You're like, no, never mind. that looks, and especially at this time of the year with the ball as well. Like, whatever about it being in summer, but at this time of the year on a wet surface, like that's not nice. So
yeah, poor guy. Especially like when the camera panned to him at the end, he looked like he was in the ringer. So I was, felt for him, and the fact that they didn't even win is probably the worst part. Denbro's here saying, does the referee get any credit for applying the rules at the end when others might have bottled it? Yeah, I mean, you do have to give credit. Is a good point. Technically, the rule is correct. My point on it has been, I think anybody who's talking about it here, the point on it has been that it's harsh. It's like calling someone up for 5 steps or something like that at a crucial stage of the game. It's like, yeah, technically it's correct, but by God, it's harsh. And with so much on the line, I've seen instances where it hasn't been given. So I can understand why Finbars would be frustrated. But you do have to give him credit. He did get the ruling probably technically correct, but brave to make that decision for sure. But yeah, Dingle are the Munster champions, and their opponents, lads, we're going to pair this game in because of who they're playing next. And that is the Leinster and Dublin champions, Ballyboden St. Enda's. Ballyboden St. Enda's, 2 goals and 18 points. A tie, 1 goal and 14 points at Croke Park. This game was not particularly close. Ballyboden had the rule of the roost in this one. They just completely took over, especially in the third quarter. Like in the second quarter of the first half, you were thinking, okay, a tie are doing stuff. They're keeping in here. They're staying in the game. And then just in the third quarter, Aaron, Ballyboden put absolute daylight between the two teams.
Yeah, it was incredibly dominant, really. Like the first half was a little bit strange. Like I felt like neither side were really probably at their brilliant best. Felt like Ballyboden had more control of the game. But to be fair to a tie, and in particular Kevin Feely, who kicked some brilliant points, brilliant 2-pointer in the first half as well. But no, it was the second half really where they really kind of kicked on Ballyboden. As I was saying earlier, like there was a 10 to 15 minute period where Ballyboden outscored a tie 1-9 to a point. And it was incredibly dominant. Like they led 2-13 to 8 points going into the final kind of quarter of the game. And look, a tie, managed to kind of bring it back a little bit towards the end of the game to maybe make the game a little bit more respectable, but it was very, very dominant for Ballyboden. And as a whole as well, like when you go through Ballyboden's results in Leinster, like they haven't even gotten out of second gear. Like this has been an absolute stroll, an absolute walk in the park. And it kind of would make you question like the standard of Leinster club football right now, because Ballyboden St. Enda's, like they're not like obviously it's hard to really know how good that they are. Look, they've had an incredible Dublin Club Football Championship, winning the Dublin Club Championship, beating Cúilín, beating Afina, and everything else, and what they've achieved. They've got some extraordinary players, nobody's denying that. But in previous years, like we've saw Cúilín, we've saw Kilmacud Crokes at times, like they've often had little shakes or little scares in Leinster, but Ballyboden St. Enda's haven't had any of that. And look, you have to credit Ballyboden. Do you also look at the level of opposition as well and think, like where has it kind of gone wrong there? But yeah, really, really strong stuff from a Ballyboden perspective. And I think the thing that's most interesting is like, we were mentioning the bars earlier and how strong obviously Stephen Sherlock was, scoring 16 points. But like Ballyboden have got so many areas that they're scoring from. Like you've got Ross McGarry with 5 points, Dara Sweeney with 4, who I think has been probably Ballyboden's best player, I'd argue, actually, in the entirety of the club season. He probably doesn't get the credit he deserves. You have Ryan Baskell still chipping away as well, Patrick Dunleavy as well, Ryan O'Doherty, Keane Darcy, Peter Healy, who I thought was very impressive as well, from a Ballyboden perspective. So, they're not relying on 1 or 2 scores. Like I know that Dingle have got a good spread of scores as well with the Gainies, but Ballyboden have more than enough there to compete with them. But again, it is one of them. Like whose shoes would you rather be in? Would you rather just absolutely walk your way through Leinster, comfortable, not having been tested, not really have learned that, or would you rather be Dingle where you've been up against it, you've been pushed to the pin of your collar, and you've had that euphoria of obviously winning a club championship with the last kick of a ball and, you know, the confidence and everything else. You'd probably rather be Dingle, wouldn't you? So, yeah, it's going to be a very interesting, interesting semi-finals and everything else. But yeah, very, very dominant for Boden. And yeah, disappointing, I think, as a spectacle, because you were expecting a bit more, I think, from a tie in this game, and we didn't really get it.
Yeah, I mean, Peter here is agreeing for sure. He says a tie where it falls down. The teams they beat on the way, really poor. Call a spade, really poor standard. Also saying here, Kane Darcy bossed the middle. David Hyland like a ghost, nowhere to be seen. McGarry's ball in for the first goal, unreal. The second goal Boden got was like lads messing around up at the pitch. Comical defending from a tie. Look, there's no doubt about it. The facts are the facts. 10 out of the last 12 Leinster Club Football Championships have been won by Dublin clubs, and no club outside of Dublin has won the Leinster Championship since 2018. And even in the COVID year, I think Ballyboden St, who were the Dublin champions, I would have put a lot of money on them to win the Leinster Championship that year. They looked really, really good. The reality is that Bowden's standard that they had to get to did drop when they got out of Dublin. They didn't have to play to as high a standard to get through Leinster as they did through Dublin. And I do believe it's harsh. I do believe that if you take any of the final four that were in Dublin, Na Fianna, Cúilín, Boden or Crokes, I think all four of them would have won the Leinster Championship the way that it panned out. So it's really harsh, but lads, what can we do here? What can the Leinster Championship do to be more competitive when you've got the Dublin clubs getting players from down the country, players like Kane Darcy and Peter Healy there for Boden, from Antrim and Galway respectively. Crokes have Shane Walsh, Na Fianna have Conor Early. Like, players are coming to these clubs, inter-county players from down the country. They are super clubs now. It's really, really hard to compete with them when they come out of Dublin.
Yeah, it really is, to be honest with you. Like, it was actually one of the more disappointing Leinster Club Football Championships I've seen for a while, because in fairness to Cúilín, like, they got good games last year. They got Naas, they got Tullamore, they got RD St. Mary's, who pushed them all the way in the Leinster final last year. But this year, I mean, if I'm being honest, Castletown Lee Meadows was the toughest challenge Ballyboden got, if we're being honest with you, and that was the first day out. Do you know? I mean, like, unfortunately, from an Offaly perspective, Tullamore just never showed up at all and couldn't get close to Ballyboden. And then a tie, like, okay, at half time I know there's 3 points in it, but really the second half, like you said, it was like a stroll in a park for them, to be honest with you. Like, it's disappointing from that perspective, because I feel like there are good clubs all across the Leinster Championship. I don't think there's any bad clubs or any bad winners or anything like that, but it's just the level, like you mentioned there. I think what Aaron is saying is kind of right. You want to win your championship regardless, whether it's easy or hard or whatever, but I think to a degree you work yourself a bit better up. I think from a heart rate perspective, you'd rather you just stroll through it and win it easily, and you can kind of relax, in a final with 20 minutes to go, 10 minutes to go, whatever, knowing that you have it won. But at the same time, I think it benefited Cúilín last year to a degree that they had to, they had a tough challenge away to Naas. They really had to fight hard in the end to get past Tullamore. They had to, St. Mary's RDs never gave up and pushed them back, got the 2 goals and pushed them right till the end. Even Cúilín Strandhill, while it's not the most greatest of spectacles, they still never gave up in that game. Whereas this year, the toughest challenges they've had have been in the Dublin Championship. And even in the Dublin final, I felt they were always that bit better than Na Fianna, even though Na Fianna started off that game strongly. So I don't know if it will benefit them or not. Only time will tell. But I think I would rather be in Dingle's position at the moment, that they've had the tough game against, Finbars, that they've had to go to the very end of it and push themselves right to the end. And, they might get a bit of momentum from that. To the same degree, I think it could benefit Martins in the hurling over Ballygunner, who had an easy Munster final in comparison to Martins, who had to go right down to the wire. But I don't know. And I don't know what we're kind of going to do to narrow the gap, because I feel like there are still, if Naas came out of Kildare next year, I still feel like they could be a team that could potentially win the championship. I still think there's other teams as well that could potentially win championships and catch a Dublin side on a bad day potentially. But given, like you mentioned there, the players that are coming into Dublin clubs, and given how difficult it is even to get out of the Dublin Championship, it'd be very hard to see who will stop a Dublin club even next year at this rate, to be honest with you. And like, especially with, you've players that are naturally going to leave their clubs. They're going to go travel. They're going to go, like, just being from an off-field perspective, even someone like Cúilín Burke's now gone to Australia to the AFL. Other players are going to decide to leave as well. So it's going to get more difficult over the next couple of years. But look, for Ballyboden, it's not their issue. They've won the championship and they're going to be delighted tonight. And it was still a great performance from them. It's still a great victory for them. And I think it'll make for a very interesting semi-final in 2026.
Oh, will. And like the reality is, though, like, Bowden's squad depth is ridiculous. For a club side, it's absolutely insane. Like, you're talking about, and I'm not saying that he is as good as I'm not saying that he's as good as Mark O'Connor, but like James Madden from Ballyboden went over to Australia, played over in Australia in the AFL, and then he comes back to Ballyboden and they don't even start him. Like, he was on the bench. And then Kieran Kennedy as well is an absolutely fantastic halfback, and when he plays, he's kind of key to their system and how they play. Again, he was on the bench. Like, they weren't starting Ryan Beskel during the club championship. They have so much strength and depth. Players like Warren Egan and Robbie McDade, who've been key to them over the last few years, just not playing this year, and they don't seem to notice their absence. The strength and depth that Bowden have is off the charts, but if it's any consolation, Liam, in terms of looking from a Leinster perspective, Aaron, I'm sure you'd agree here, in the Dublin Championship this year, there was two tiers. There was, like, when you look at that Final Four, I was very particular about cutting it off at the Final Four, because apart from the Fina, the way that the other three got to the Final Four, they hammered everyone in their path. Every single other club in their path, they hammered them. There was no competitive game for any of them up until the semi-finals. So in Dublin, Aaron, do you think it's actually getting more? And maybe this is a conversation for a podcast before, but just while we're here, do you think the gap is actually opening up in Dublin? That whole cliche about it being so difficult to win the Dublin Championship. Are we seeing a little bit of a Camogie-esque dynasty with Galway, Cork, Kilkenny? Are we seeing that open up in Dublin now with Bowden, Coola, Crokes?
Yeah, it definitely seems that way when you look at recent seasons. And I think you've yourself and Liam have kind of put it well there. Like, when you are able to attract players from other counties like a Shane Walsh, like a Cian Darcy, like a Keelan Sexton as well. Look, and I know these lads are living in Dublin and everything else because of opportunities and everything else. It's not their fault. It's not their fault they've lived in Dublin and ended up at these clubs and everything else. It's probably just the way the system is. They probably do need to bring something in where maybe you can only have a certain amount of players from other counties, or maybe it needs to be spread out a little bit more to make it more fair. I don't really know what they need to introduce. I think an interesting one though as well with the gap widening. I do think the new rules do play a part as well. Like, I am a big fan of the new rules. There's no question about that, but I think there is a lot more evidence to suggest that the gap is widening probably between the bigger teams and the lesser teams. And I think when you look at the county championship as well, like inter-county football, like we saw how one-sided of an All-Ireland semi-final we got between Donegal and Meath, even the All-Ireland final itself as well. Like, when one team gets to hop on another, it can be over very, very quickly. The gap is very, very strong and very, very wide. And I think we've saw that in the Leinster Championship as well, where with the previous rules and the previous setup, teams like RD and Nace, they could make it more of a dogfight. They could slow the game down. Look, it wouldn't be as pretty to watch, so I certainly don't want to go back to that. I think it's up to the other clubs to kind of play good football and raise the standards and everything else. But I do think with the new rules, that probably is favouring, I think, certain clubs as well in terms of the gap getting bigger. Look, when you have two teams at an even spectrum, like Dingle and Finbars, like, it makes it probably one of the games of the year. Same obviously in Ulster as well. It probably just is one of them things in Leinster that the Dublin clubs are way ahead. I think they do need to look at bringing through players from other counties and everything else, because it definitely is unfair on the other clubs.
I would agree. I think there's enough clubs in Dublin that when you have players of the caliber of Shane Walsh, if he wants to move to a Dublin club, he shouldn't be able to just move to the best club at the time. And Cian Darcy has moved now to the Dublin Champions and things like that. I think if they were going to move, they should be able to join a club that isn't champions last year. Do you know what I mean? Like, that one was why that one kicked up a lot of fuss. But it's a really, really interesting debate. Yeah, it is very, very interesting. Shane here and Matthew as our designated Munster man. I'm going to give you this one comment in here from Shane. So can I just give huge praise to Ballymacalligot? They broke our hearts, but they experienced real heartbreak. They lost an 18-year-old in a water incident a week before his leaving cert. #live for Luke. And they now are Munster Junior champions and doing it in memory of Luke. I seen that there. They had a victory in the Munster Junior Football Championship final by 3-12 to Buttevant of Cork's 8 points. Matthew, it's a huge day, and you know, there, as Shane's pointed out, a lot of emotion attached to that win as well.
There is, yeah. And obviously condolences to the Ballymacalligot club and the loss for Luke there. But yeah, it was a great win for Ballymacalligot. They were comfortable enough against Buttevant. Obviously, the tiering systems of Cork and Kerry clubs, that's a story for another day. It's sort of instances like that. It's some things are bigger than a game of football or a game of hurling. And look, obviously, Ballymacalligot did it for him, did it for Luke, and it was a fantastic win for them. It was a comfortable win in the end as well. And yeah, it was just an emotional day attached to Ballymacalligot throughout the day as well. Like coincidentally, junior champions in football and hurling in Munster had tragedies throughout the whole year. Ballymacalligot obviously with Luke, the Leaving Cert student. Obviously in the hurling side, Kilbrittain from Cork had similar, who had the loss of Oisin Galan, who died of sudden adult death syndrome SADS earlier this year. So it's sort of tragedies like that bring a whole kind of community and club together, and you just love clubs like that to do well in the future in terms of trying to give a bit of joy to their community. For Kilbrittain and obviously for Ballymacalligot as well, and any other club that is suffer from loss as well, up and down the country as well. So obviously condolences to everybody involved there with Ballymacalligot, but hopefully Luke will be looking down at that team and looking down at them with pride after their win at the weekend.
Yeah, well said, man. Yesterday, Grav and Anam Dealish, rest in peace to the young lad, and deepest condolences to anybody affected by that tragedy. Yeah, lads, I don't know, Aaron, Liam, do you want to have any input on that?
Yeah, no, look, I'd very much agree with what Matthew said there. Like, yeah, it's like hugely tragic. So yeah, like my thoughts are obviously passed on to everyone affected. And yeah, like for Ballymacalligot, like a famous win, obviously massive win. Sounded like a crazy game as well, like going to penalties and everything else. So huge drama, and everything else that was with it. But very, very sad. And yeah, like I think when you do hear these tragedies across multiple clubs, counties, and everything else over the last couple of years, it kind of does put a lot of things into perspective, doesn't it? You know, there's a lot of bigger things than football and everything else. So yeah, no, very, very sad to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's tragedy to hear that, and especially, you know, someone of such a young age as well. It's even worse, to be honest with you. You know, like you've your whole life ahead of you, and then suddenly this happens. So, look, to everyone involved in the club and to families and everything like that, condolences. And Jesus, the dad being a selector, Jesus, that must be even tougher in a way, to be honest with you. But it shows the community is together, and it shows that there's a sense of pride there as well and love for each other, which is a good sign. But yeah, condolences to the entire family, and it's great to see them doing well this year anyways. And you know, if they can go on and win an All-Ireland now, Jesus, wouldn't that just be brilliant for the community and for everybody involved? And he'd be looking down smiling for them.
Absolutely. Well said, lads. While we're on this, while we're on the Ballyboden game, fresh off the back of the Ballyboden game, and we also previously had talked about the Dingle Finbars game, they are going to meet each other in the semi-final. We'll have a quick preview. Just predictions. No big in-depth dive and everything like that, because there's a lot of if, buts, maybes, and the main one is called Mark O'Connor. Whether he's going to go back to Australia or whether he'll be there for that game, because that matchup between himself and Kane Darcy could be absolutely incredible. But in a word, Matthew, I'll go to you first because I think I know which way you're going.
Dingle, yeah. Set it from the very off. Dingle will win it.
Liam?
I'm going to edge it to Dingle.
Okay, I'm going Bowden. Aaron?
Yeah, I'm going Ballyboden as well. You can definitely tell who the Dubs are in this podcast.
Well, that is what we're going for, and we will obviously have our reasons for that and everything on the next. Well, Peter's come in, lads. So I mean, tough.
Peter says goes.
The scales has been tipped. Peter is the person who comments the most on the channel, so I mean, he has a vote as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, 3-2 Bowden, but we'll have a full debate about that on the weekend preview show for that semi-final, and keep in the loop for that for sure. Now, after that Ballyboden, a tie game where Bowden won their first Leinster title since 2019, and obviously a massive congratulations to Ballyboden for achieving that. We had a much better, much more competitive. Oh yeah. Nah, fuck that, Cormac. We can. Nah, I'm only messing.
Oh, it's over now.
Staying here, leveling it up. Dingle by 3, so we have it at 3-3. So anybody wants to get involved in that and tip the scales in one way or another, you know what to do. Drop in Dingle or Bowden and by how much. But we are going to move on now to the Leinster Senior Hurling Championship Final. The clash of St. Martin's and Ballyhale Shamrocks. What a win this was. St. Martin's 24 points, Ballyhale Shamrocks 2 goals and 17 points at Croke Park. St. Martin's win their first ever Leinster Senior Hurling Championship. Matthew, what an incredible victory.
Yeah, it was an unreal. In fairness to St. Martin's, nobody really expected this beating a team like Ballyhale Shamrocks. I know Martin's beaten Afina, and they beat Naas probably comprehensively in the semi-final, but looking at Ballyhale's kind of historic relevance in the Leinster Championship, nobody would have expected this. And what a performance by Martin's. And even at half-time when Ballyhale were a bit ahead, or a small bit behind, then obviously Niall Shortall gets the goal in the second half. You're thinking, oh, Ballyhale are going to come back into this game. Okay, it's the normal service resumed. But up until that point, I thought Martins were the better team. Even when it was going down the home stretch, it was level. I thought Martins were the much better team throughout the day. Like, even in the Munster Final today, you could say Dingle at some stage were a better team. The Bars were a better team at some stage, than it was a harsh way to end it. Even when the last minute point came from Ben Stafford at the very end, I could not begrudge St. Martin's at all with the win, because I said it even before the final whistle went, even when it was level going down the home stretch, Martin's are the better team. Now, Jack O'Connor was absolutely sensational, 6 points from play. Rory O'Connor, absolutely brilliant, 11 points as well. And Darren Codd from centre forward worked his socks off, I thought, throughout the whole game. And what a performance by Martin. What a boost it is to Wexford Hurling. And I give the Wexford County Board a lot of praise over this, because we've said it over the past 2 seasons that the Wexford Hurling Championship needed to end in October, November time, not August. And Wexford Hurling have done that over the last few years. And coincidentally, the last 2 years, St. Martin's have entered this competition and they've won it in October, and they've tested teams all the way. Like, Martin's have, it's an impressive record, in fact, in the past 2 years from a Martin's point of view as well, because the only team they've lost to across league, championship, everything in the last 2 years is Nafina in Parnell Park. And that was only by a score or 2. So they deserve a lot of credit over this. Maybe it isn't as much of a shock as people think. It is a very good win for them. And they have the likes of Jack O'Connor. Jake Furman is another player who really, really excelled yesterday, I thought, as well. And yeah, what a performance from every single one of the Martins players. And the interviews at the end, I thought that the point from Stafford was just stuff that would go in the history books as well. The interview that Jack O'Connor gave to Shane Dawson from RT was absolutely sensational as well. Like, the quotes on that, he was saying that to win this in Croke Park, whoa, it was absolutely brilliant. And obviously him saying, go on Stafford, that's probably quote of the year. Like, that's absolutely brilliant stuff. And look, absolutely brilliant from Martin's point of view. Absolutely deserve it. From a Ballyhale standpoint, I think they looked a bit flat in the first half. Then in the second half, they started to wake up a small bit. They started to smell the bacon and things like that. But it just, Martins were relentless. They kept going, and they deserved their win absolutely in the entire game. If Adrian Mullen was there, could he have made a difference? Maybe. But at the same time, the way Martins were playing, I thought there was just that onus about them that they were not going to lose on Saturday evening. They were going to win the game. And it was just a sensational performance from everybody in the Martins team. And I tell you this for nothing, they'll put it up to Ballygunner. Wherever the game is, wherever it is, Netwatch, Cullen Park, Nolan Park, wherever it is, they'll put it up to Ballygunner without a doubt in the All-Ireland semi-final. And I'll be looking forward to seeing what they can do in the All-Ireland semi.
It's going to be very... And lads, if they beat Ballygunner to get to the All-Ireland final, like in 3 of their last 4 games, and they'll have beaten Nafina, Ballyhale, and Ballygunner. Like, that's an outrageous list of teams to have ticked off. We've lots of comments coming in here about this game. Ryan here saying, great boost for Wexford Hurling. 2 Leinster club titles over the weekend with wins for St. Martin's and Davidstown. Peter saying, agree with Rushy's analysis after Martin's had the legs on Ballyhale. Ballyhale, though, they've 9 All-Irelands, 13 Leinster titles, some record. They set the tone from the off in hurling and physical terms. The half-back line, the engine room, Matthew, you mentioned it there. Some of the performances in the half-back line was unbelievable. Had their homework to a T. Lovely photo as well of the O'Connors after with Georgie O'Connor, the legend of 1996. I mean, George O'Connor is a legend. Loughrea, Slotneil scheduled for Parnell Park. Very, very interesting. And Peter, interesting, saying TJ's legs are gone. Is that a little bit harsh, Aaron?
I think it is. Like, he scored 1 point from play. Wasn't really involved in the game too much. Still scored 6 points in total, to be fair. But yeah, like I think he was. Look, he was a little bit off, but look, no one's begrudging TJ. Like, after everything he's given to Kilkenny and Ballyhale, you know, like, I think at this, like, what is he, 38 now, is he? Yeah, like, I mean, at some point the legs are going to go. And to be fair, it shouldn't be down to him. It should be down to other players and everything else to step up, you know. And I think from a St. Martin's point of view, like, yeah, their running game, their physicality, I'd agree with a lot of the comments earlier as well. Like, the speed at which they move the ball at times was absolutely brilliant. And although you were looking at players like Jack O'Connor and Rory O'Connor and everything else, I agree with Matthew as well. I think Darren Codd was outstanding. 2 points. The energy that he brought to the game as well was brilliant. And yeah, look, it's disappointment from a Ballyhale perspective, but look, they've been around the block for a long, long time, so you can't really begrudge them. I think my voice is fucking going here as well.
Oh, we lost him.
No, we're back now. I just need to. You just need to get it all out. But yeah, look, incredible result for Martins. It's going to be interesting to see how they get on against Ballygunner as well. I would say it is the 2 best teams left in the series, but no, I think probably a little bit harsh on saying TJ's legs are gone.
Yeah, I wouldn't say his legs are completely gone, but I just think it wasn't his best day. Jack Nulty says, great win for Martins. It certainly was, Jack. It was, like, you look at it this way, incredible achievement for St. Martin's to win their first Leinster title and to do it the hard way as well. Beat Nafina, the All-Ireland champions, and beat Ballyhale Shamrocks in the Leinster final. You know, at the death there, the shot by Ben Stafford. It's incredible stuff. You see the scenes at the end, the photo of the O'Connors with George O'Connor, everything like that. Just magical night for St. Martin's. There's no question about it, lads. They did it the hard way. They're into the All-Ireland semi-final now against Ballygunner. Whichever one of you wants to take this one, because I can't remember who's the last person I haven't gone to in a while. But I'll go Liam. I'll go to you for this one. How do you fancy them going up against Ballygunner now?
I suppose, first of all, I promised a friend of mine from school that I'd give her boyfriend a shout out, which is Diarmuid O'Leary, who was wingback for St. Martin's. So, Kate, I hope you, I hope he's a happy man tonight. Like I mentioned there, the half back line, he was sensational in this game, in fairness to him. So, congratulations to you, Diarmuid. Listen, I'm delighted for St. Martin's on a personal level, to be honest with you. And it's not against Ballyhale. I have huge respect for Ballyhale. Seeing the way they performed, obviously, against us a couple of weeks ago, the hearts that they showed, and you know, look, they're not the same Ballyhale team as old. We will probably admit that. They're not the team that won the All-Irelands at the Leinster Title between 18 and 23. But they're a great credit to Kilkenny Hurling, the way they've showed up every single year. Even this year, coming back and winning it after not winning it the last 2 years was great resilience from them. And Henry coming back in, and he's done a super job with them, to be fair. Would Adrian Mullen made a difference? Look, I think Adrian Mullen would have probably made a difference. Even seeing it the first day against us, the way he stepped up in the second half alongside Owen Cody, I think he could have had a big second half potentially. But having said that, it's if, buts and maybes, to be honest with you. I wouldn't agree TJ's legs are gone. Haven't seen that man perform against Tipperary in the All-Ireland semi-final earlier this year. I can't say his legs are gone, to be honest. I still think he's a top class hurler for both Kilkenny and for Ballyhale, regardless of age, to be honest with you. But yeah, look, I'm delighted for St. Martin's. It's a fantastic victory for them. Jack O'Connor, that's the best performance he's put in a long time, I think, for both club and county, to be honest. He had a bit of an indifferent season with Wexford, but he really stepped up yesterday. He was absolutely sensational. Like you mentioned there, Mike Coleman at corner forward, Darren Codd, Jack O'Connor, Rory O'Connor, just all of them, when they had to step up and when they had to fight to the very end, they absolutely did it. And I mean, we got to give credit to Marty for the commentary, even though he said it came off the post, which it didn't. I think he just got caught up in the excitement at the end, to be honest with you. But fair play to Ben. Like, that's a long range shot to be taken, especially when you've bodies absolutely chasing after you to hook you or block you and stop you from getting it off. But no, it's a brilliant win for St. Martin's. And even the way they dispatched Naas as well, because it's one thing, say, going and beating Nafina, you'd obviously be up for that because they knocked them out last year and they're the All-Ireland champions. But to then go and dispatch Naas the way they did was really, really impressive, beating them by 11 points at home. To then go and beat Ballyhale, like, they're a top-class side. And I was impressed with them last year, the first time when I saw them beaten. When I saw them in the Wexford final last year, I thought they were good. And then seeing them the way they bet Naas away from home last year, I was pleasantly like, okay, this is a right good team. And then, like Matthew said, I think it was a 4-point win last year for Nafina, and Martins were winning the game before Nafina got their goal with, I think it was 6-7 minutes to go. So they're a really, really good side, and they could potentially be a team that could really dominate Wexford over the next couple of years, to be honest with you, even though the last two finals have been close encounters, to be fair. But in terms of their game against Ballygunner, listen, do you know what it is? When you win your own provincial championship, for me, I don't see a big difference a lot of time in, say, Leinster and Munster with the clubs, to be honest, even with Ballygunner as dominant as they have been, because to win the Leinster championship is tough, to win the Munster championship is tough. And look, Ballygunner got through it in the way that they did, and Martins have got through it the way they did. Like I said there, Martins will absolutely not fear Ballygunner in the slightest. If they can take down Nafina, if they can take down Ballyhale, if they can beat Naas in the comprehensive fashion that they did, there's absolutely no reason why they can't go. And winning the first provincial championship, I'm telling you something, there's something about winning your first provincial championship that can just kick you on an extra few steps, to be honest with you. It's kind of a big reason why I feel even Dingle could go on and beat Ballyboden. Ballyboden have been here before. They've won the Leinster championship. For Dingle, they're going to be riding the crest of a wave now. We saw it with Cúilín last year winning their first Leinster championship, going on to win the All-Ireland title. We saw it with them in the hurling as well. So I don't know. I'm not going to say they're going to beat Ballygunner here now and like that, because I feel Ballygunner still might have the edge on them. But I wouldn't be sitting here in 2 weeks' time, or next week, or whenever it is, in 2 weeks' time, if St. Martins have beaten Ballygunner, saying it's a shock rank like that, because I think they deserve a huge amount of respect for the way they performed this year, for the way they got the win yesterday in Croke Park. To go up to Croke Park for the first time and to win like that is unbelievable as well. And especially they had a slow start to the game. Richie Reid got the point at the end as well, which could have dampened their spirits. But the way they fought back, the way they got over the line, congratulations to them. And yeah, they're worthy Leinster champions. Can't argue about that.
They absolutely did it the hard way. There's no question about it. They went through murderer's row to get to the final, and they have beaten a real, if you're talking about the prestige of winning a Leinster championship, it's like, beating Brazil in a World Cup final. It's like you want to beat Ballyhale in the Leinster final for what they've done in the competition over the last 10 years, especially the players that they produced. You want to beat Ballyhale in the final. Aaron, how do you see them going up now in the future? And what do you make of the game itself, the performance, and then how far do you see them going? In terms of one moment that encapsulated their determination, there was one point that Rory O'Connor got. I know that you will immediately know the one I'm on about. Out on the sideline, catches it over his marker's head, shrugs him off, and just slaps it over the bar from right on the sideline. And it was the type of score I was like, Jesus, what can the defender do there? What more can the defender do? That's world class.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, very much kind of epitomized everything probably about St. Martin's this year. They're whatever about their skill and their quality and everything else, but the energy they brought to games, I think has been one of the most interesting things. And I think, having moved the Wexford Championship a little bit closer to the All-Ireland series, it definitely has benefited them, in that kind of regards, because they are coming into these games fresher. They're bang up for it, and they're winning the kind of loose balls, the dirty balls, and everything else. They were 1-4-2 down. In the opening kind of 10-15 minutes on, Cody obviously gets the goal, and you're thinking, right, Ballyhale are it was kind of a bit of a stop-start team between both sides in the opening 10-15 minutes. St. Martin's probably missed a couple of chances, and I think we're the better side, but Ballyhale punished them. But no, once Martin's kind of settled into the game, and obviously with the point that you mentioned as well, like their confidence kind of just grew the more the game went on, with the likes of Jack O'Connor and Darren Codd as well, Jake Furman. Like, they've got some incredible players. And look, I don't think they'll be, they won't be short of confidence going in against Ballygunner. Having beaten Afina, beaten Ballyhale Shamrocks. Again, St. Martin's probably the underdogs in both of those games. They're probably going to be underdogs going in against Ballygunner as well. And I think that's gonna suit them. And look, with Ballygunner, I think they are on another level, to be honest. Like, I've felt all year, and I remember saying even in the preview show that I do think Ballyhale are a lot more beatable nowadays. I think we've seen that in recent years in the Kilkenny Championship. Whilst there is younger players coming through, there is still a lot of older guard in there. And the more the time goes on, it's only natural that you're going to look a little bit more susceptible to getting beat more often than what would have been the case maybe 6, 7, 8 years ago. So yeah, I think it's going to be a really interesting semi-final. I would still at this moment in time shade it towards Ballygunner. I think they have another level to go up on, in my opinion. But look, St. Martin certainly won't be fearing them. And if they can bring that work rate and energy that they've brought to the other games, I think they have a serious chance.
Yeah, no, they're going to be hard to stop now without any question. Just to run through before we wrap up, lads, to give a massive shout to the other results that took place across the weekend in intermediate and junior. Starting with Sunday's games, you had Danesfort beating Ratoath in the Leinster Intermediate Hurling Championship Final, and Richie Hogan, of course, played a big part in that win for Danesfort. They won 2-15 to 12 points. The Ulster Intermediate Football Championship Final was won by Glenullen of Derry. They beat Cuchulainn of Cavan by 3-15 to 19 points. Our good friend John McMahon at the JMac podcast, he was there, put up an interview with Paddy Bradley. I don't know if you've seen it yet, lads, but it's on his YouTube channel there as well. Big shout out to John. The Leinster Junior Hurling Championship Final then was on today as well. Davidstown of Wexford beating Clane of Kildare 3-12 to 11 points, as was mentioned in our comment section a little bit earlier as well. And then on Saturday, we've touched on the other games in the Munster Championship, but just to remind you of the score, Gaeltacht of Kerry beating Ahabulloch of Cork in the intermediate final 2-12 to 1-8. Ballymackelligot of Kerry beating Buttevant of Cork 3-12 to 8 points in the Munster Junior Football Championship Final. And then in the All-Ireland Junior Football Championship quarter final, Clocker Era Og of Tyrone beating Tara of London by 2-11 to a goal and 13 points. And all of those results are up on the Instagram pages of at Gaelic Statsman and at Cúilín Media, courtesy of Matthew Hurley. So that is the podcast for this weekend, episode 27 on Cúilín Media, another weekend review show in the books. Thank you so much to the lads for jumping on with me for another episode. Thank you so much to everybody who watched, tuned in at any stage of the podcast and got involved in the discussion as well, especially. We'll be back on Thursday evening at 8 p.m. for another weekend preview show. But until then, Slán agus Tóra.
Follow your instinct, baby. Follow your instinct.